embarrassingly little American investment drives the South. But foreign investment? Everywhere. The American South has become a playground for Germany's VW and Mercedes-Benz, Japan's Honda, Mazda, Nissan, and Toyota, Korea's Hyundai and Kia, and Sweden's Volvo. Even persnickety Airbus has facilities in Charleston, South Carolina, and Mobile, Alabama. Florida. You go to Florida for the beaches, Disney World, and retirement, not to manufacture stuff. And we're walking. The Great Lakes region was once known as America's Steel Belt. A bit of canal work in the mid-1800s connected the Northeast to the Great Lakes and Greater Mississippi, making this region the greatest integrated manufacturing zone on the planet. For a time. During the Great Depression, the Americans adopted something known as the Jones Act, which forced any cargo shipped between any two American ports to use only vessels that were American-built, owned, captained, and crewed. That, put conservatively, increased the cost of water transport in the United States by a factor of 5. What made this region special and successful withered. Add in international competition during the globalization age, and the region has since been reimagined as the Rust Belt, despite arguably having the nation's best educational system. Manufacturing still exists, of course. Illinois is home to none other than John Deere, with the bulk of the continent's large farm equipment even today manufactured in the Midwest. Detroit is no slouch, but neither is it the region's norm. Instead of mass volume, heavily integrated systems, most players are on the small side, heavy into highly technical custom work and often supplying specialty parts to Texas. The Texas Triangle comprises the cities of Houston, Dallas-Fort Worth, Austin, and San Antonio. From a manufacturing point of view, the Triangle has it all. Cheap food, cheap power, cheap land, no income tax, minimal corporate tax, hilariously light regulations. And that won't change. Hell, the Texas legislature only meets once every other year for only 35 days, and legislators are constitutionally barred from even considering legislation for the first half of that time window. American manufacturers of all types have flocked to the region. The single biggest subsector is automotive, but that oversimplifies a dizzying variety and dynamism. Austin operationalizes Silicon Valley's ideas. Dallas-Fort Worth leverages its banking center to turn Austin's brain work into mass manufacturing. San Antonio mixes lower cost than even the Texas average with the tech of Austin to blow out anything that can be put on an assembly line. But the real star of the Texas game is Houston. It plays with Austin in tech, and Dallas-Fort Worth in automation, and San Antonio with mass manufacture, and it is a financial capital. And it is America's energy hub, and it is in the Gulf Coast region, and it is America's biggest port by value, and it is really good at moving around big chunks of metal. The machine work the Germans are so good in, Houston comes in a solid second place globally. No wonder Houston is the country's second largest concentration for Fortune 500 headquarters. Most of America's regions would do very well flying solo, but they do not need to. Add in the country's broad-scale road and rail system for transporting intermediate products, and in many ways the American manufacturing system has more variety than even Asia, even without its northern and southern neighbors. This brings us to the second bit of magic in NAFTA manufacturing. America does have a neighbor that complements its system, Mexico. The wage differential between the American and the Mexican average is approximately 6-to-1. Less than Asia's split, but bigger than Europe's. That doesn't tell the entire story, however. Mexico is a different beast compared to many of the other countries we've covered. Anti-Americanism didn't stop dictating Mexican industrial policy until the 1990s, and Mexico didn't really start playing the industrialization game until 2000, which, incidentally, is a mere heartbeat before China was admitted to the World Trade Organization. Being a late starter definitely generated some problems, but nothing has held Mexico back more than its topography. Mexico's low latitude puts it firmly in the tropics. The combination of tropical heat and tropical moisture and tropical bugs makes the tropics the most problematic climate possible for industrialization. Building materials are compromised. Concrete often sets incorrectly due to the humidity. Asphalt slides in the heat. And the population must do battle with tropical diseases. Mexicans address these issues by moving up onto the broad plateau between the Sierra Madre mountain chains, but that has generated new problems. Living at altitude means no coastal access and no navigable rivers, necessitating artificial infrastructure that must battle with the terrain at every step. Trains can only carry half their nameplate capacity when on rails that aren't as little as a 0.25% slope. And there's a lot more than a 0.25% slope on most mountains. Everything gets very expensive very quickly. Another problem of moving up mountain is that the higher one climbs, the lower the humidity and the vapor pressure of water. For those of you who live at sea level, that means water not only evaporates quickly, it actually boils at a lower temperature, specifically about 15 degrees lower in Mexico City than in Miami. These characteristics take us two places. First, Mexico does have an extreme labor cost variation of the sort that makes East Asia work so well. The country's fractured nature ensures it. But that variation is not easily accessible, making the point more or less moot until such time as Mexico's infrastructure can catch up. Second, as one moves north from Mexico City, the combination of higher latitudes plus different wind and sea currents and a shifting mountain complexion turns the land to desert. Normally, this would be bad. Rainfall is so low that very little non-irrigated agriculture occurs in northern Mexico at all. That means cities are on their own. There are no hinterlands to draw tomorrow's population from. But that, in turn, creates an interesting political and economic dynamic. When cities are, in essence, oases, the normal evolution is for a single person or small group of people to assert control over just about everything. If infrastructure or industrial plant needs to be built, someone has to pay for it, and whoever does the paying likes to keep control over it. If the city isn't surrounded by a belt of forest or farms, there really isn't anywhere for rebels to hide. That makes the Mexican system, particularly the northern Mexican cities, fairly oligarchic. Normally, oligarchic systems are neither wealthy nor dynamic because the bosses keep the cash to themselves. In the case of northern Mexico, however, these jefes are hard up on the U.S. border and serve as gateways to the world's largest industrial and consumer market. That changes the math. Northern Mexican business people still integrate with one another, at least within their own shared metro region, but it is far more important for them to plug into an American supply chain, particularly the wealthy Texas Triangle supply system. Perhaps best of all, while the United States features the developed world's healthiest demographic structure, Mexico features the best of the advanced developing worlds. There's plenty of consumption on both sides of the border. End result? The Texas-Mexico axis boasts the technological sophistication of Japan, the wage variation of China, and the integration of Germany with its neighbors, all within the footprint of the world's largest consumption market. That is where we are now. But now is not the future.